was boring to a degree because after all, you're a teenager, and life is boring when you're a teenager.
It's amazing how fast the time went by because it was an adventure every day going back and forth, and they like the fleet coming in, you know, the battleships and all that sort of thing. It was just a wonderland to me. It really was. I didn't feel, I would say, disconnected from anything. It was all there for me.
One thing I was always sure of, I was never going to go to prison. We had a wonderful library in the prison. We had to go into the prison to go to the library.
Well, we'd go up there, and the one librarian, Williams, he came with us from Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. And he was in for life, and then he was a librarian there on Alcatraz.
And there was these two young prisoners worked there, and they were great help for us to look up homework and so forth. And when, in fact, we got to be, you know, very good friends. But they were in there for a minor infraction, you know, it wasn't anything really serious.
We'd tell them what we wanted, and they'd do the research for us. And all we had to do is just go up and collect it, you know, it was great.
If we couldn't find a certain reference book, then they would spend all day long looking for it, and we'd go up after school, and they'd have it all ready for us.
They were very caring. They really were. And Williams was the one that when we were little at Fort Leavenworth, and we'd fall and skin our knees. He was at the gate there, where there was a small gate to let people in, a large gate to let the trucks in. And we'd fall and skin our knees, and we'd go over there, and Williams would take us in and wipe everything off, you know, and put iodine on it for us, and see if we had to go back to the hospital. And then he, when Alcatraz was disbanded, then he left for Fort J, New York, for the prison there. And I can see him yet. We were allowed to go on the boat with the prisoners over to Oakland so they could catch the train. And he turned around and just went, kissed us goodbye. You know, I think about it now.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
no, that's sweet. It's bringing tears to my eyes.
Yeah.
That's very sweet. And let me ask you too, with that going, what was this kind gentleman in there for?
He was in for murder, in for life.
And
he had killed his wife.
Did that ever make you scared?
Oh no, oh no.
We never really had any fear of them at all.
He was so kind. You know, we were just little kids, and he was so kind to us.
We had a bowling alley, and we could go bowling anytime we wanted to, and the prisoners were the pin setters. In those days, we didn't have the mechanics, and they had to set the pins up.
And I know on Alcatraz, even at Fort Leavenworth, they used to have the shows there that the prisoners put on, and we would go and see them.
The first run movies, instead of going to San Francisco, they were brought to Alcatraz first. And they had a section reserved for the dependents that we could sit when the prisoners were there.
They would all sit in the middle, and then we sat on this side, and the aisle was about that wide. So I would sit here, and there were the prisoners sitting here. We were right there. And there would be perhaps 100 prisoners in there.
And then we would watch the movies. And then on, I believe it was on Sunday nights, they used to have like little vaudeville teams come over and put on a real show.
And there's one lady, she came over, and of all the songs to sing, she got up and sang, if I had the wings of an angel over these prison walls, I would fly to the arms of my darling, and there I'd be willing to die. Well, it just brought so much laughter from the prisoners. They were hysterical. But she just didn't give up. She kept right on going.
No, it wasn't strange because we had lived next to prisoners before at Leavenworth, and so it wasn't anything to us that we were in that close proximity to the prisoners.
And then they used to have fights there too, you know. We weren't allowed to go. They had to have what they call stag fights, and they would bring people over from San Francisco, civilians, and they could come to the fights. And they were grudge fights among the prisoners there, and they would stage those in the mess hall.
It became a federal prison when we left.
It changed completely from night to day. It was all the difference in the world. And it really, that's what spoiled it for me, was the fact that who could, you know, come in, even the prison, to bring it and change it into something so violent when it hadn't been. And the prisoners respected the guards, the military guards, and the military guards respected them. It was discipline. They don't have that now, and they didn't have it when the federal moved in either. And that's what I miss, was the standard of living. It's all changed.
They destroyed the housing that we lived in. That was one of the first things they tore down, and we were disappointed in that.
On the wall there, we had ice plant, and it was purple. And we used to call it our purple carpet because it hung down all the way down to the water. And it was bloomed, you know, it was gorgeous. So a purple carpet on Alcatraz. But they took all that down, and it lost its tranquility, I will say.
Yeah, the sirens would go off. But we were used to that already. They did that at Leavenworth, and we'd hear the siren go, and we'd know someone had tried it again.
Dad phoned my mother from the prison and said there had been an escape, and please, we never locked our doors, but to please lock the doors because nobody knew where they were, and they didn't. Had they gone in the water? Hadn't they? Was that just a ruse, or what was it? But he called her and told her to lock the doors, and she did, and they finally decided that they had escaped.
Several of them had the bright idea of putting lard on their bodies.
And removed their clothes and smeared Crisco all over themselves. And of course, I don't think they ever made it because the water was cold and the tide was going out.
Well, we always just felt sorry because we knew they wouldn't make it. And we couldn't understand why they thought they could, because they had been in prison, you know, for maybe 2 or 3 years, and they had not gone into the water in all that time, and we just felt like that it was a bad plan. Mm-hmm.
Dad finally called about a couple hours later and said that they had searched the island from top to bottom and they were not there. So, and you know, there wasn't that much to search. And they had the launch going around, you know.
Some of them were found, but I think there were about 3 of them. They never did hear from them again.
There was a girl, Anastasia Scott, who swam. She was our neighbor, who swam from Alcatraz to San Francisco. However, she had it timed just right. So as she swam, halfway over, the tide was going out, and then halfway over, the tide was coming back in, so it brought her back in. So she did make it.
The trustees did all of our yard work, and they delivered the ice, and they took our laundry, because there's no laundry facilities in the housing at that time. And all of the sheets and everything, we just turned them in, and they'd bring us clean sets.
And the rest of the people, they all had cooks and everything. I doubt if my father would have let anybody come in and cook or clean, because he had Mama, and nobody could do it quite like Mama.
The prisoners delivered all of our groceries. There was nothing on the island as far as buying food. We had to call San Francisco. They had trucks that brought the food down, and they would be in big boxes, and then the prisoners would put it on their trucks, and it would be marked with their names, and they would deliver to all the houses on the island. Well, this may sound strange, but the doctor's office was in the prison, and if there was anything wrong with us, we had to go to the prison to be treated. The dentist's office was there, and I remember when we had to take shots when we went to Hawaii, and we all went up on the 3rd tier in the cell block, and that's where they gave shots. And my youngest sister got scared and broke away, and she ran all over the prison. The prisoners were chasing her. She was so frightened.
How did you guys get her?
Well, finally somebody got in front of her, because she was only, about 7.
So there was obviously then some concern that she was afraid of being in there.
No, she was afraid of the shot.
Oh.
As we were walking up the way, why the park police, or whatever, what are they called?
The Rangers.
Rangers. He would ask me, because someone had said, you know, I had lived there, and he would ask me, what's this building and what's that building? And I would say, well, that was our post exchange, and, you know, and our commissary and all that sort of thing. And he said, yes, that's right. I said, yes, I know it is. I was so hurt to see all the damage that the Indians had done to the island. I really was. Why did they do that? They just ruined everything. That gorgeous lighthouse.
And they burned, we still call it Colonel Weeks' house, and they burned his house down, and they destroyed so much. And if they were going to occupy, they should have done it in a more decent, civilized manner, to me.
They just destroyed everything.
I feel hurt that these things have happened over there, because it was really, we had a very pleasant life. And I think even the families of the federal guards enjoyed it. It wasn't as restrictive as most people think it was. It was quite an enjoyable life.
I think I'm more understanding than a lot of people. And I never expect anything from anybody. Whenever I get anything, it's always a wonderful surprise. No, I have a strange outlook on life. I live every day, do my best, and do my best for everybody else.
Any opportunity, I would go back. It was just part of my life that I know is probably unusual, and it was the life that I really enjoyed.